Hey, guys, this episode is brought to you by TeePublic. You guys know TeePublic. I've been with TeePublic forever, since the Schmodown days, since the big thing launched. If you have a Sith Council shirt, if you have any of our shirts, you got them from TeePublic. From over the years, we've been working with TeePublic. When I went out on my own, they were one of the first calls that I made. So not only can you get all of the branded merch from this show, t-shirts, stickers, phone cases, mugs, all that, when you are on the site, do a search. You're going to discover something that you like, especially in this space, man. An artist uploads new work to the TeePublic marketplace every 5 seconds. Because of the thousands of global artists that populate the marketplace, you're going to find designs you won't find at a big box store, especially if your interests are super niche. Doesn't matter what you're into, you can find it on TeePublic. You want a graphic tee of a cat riding a unicorn? Check. A t-shirt with your favorite movie quote? Got it. You want merch for the big thing? Hey, that's what you want, obviously. I've been using TeePublic forever. If you guys know me from back in the day, I've been talking about them that long. So it was obvious that I was going to be using them again, and I'm so glad that I did. So many of you guys, when I see you at some of the events, you're wearing the big thing shirts, and it all comes from TeePublic. And browse around on my link. It's going to be in the iCard right there. It's going to be in the description right there. Browse around. You will find stuff that you like. So I'm happy that they're on the show. They're sponsoring the show now. TeePublic, everybody. Check them out. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the big thing. It's UAP Tuesday. Myself and Mark Reilly here today to talk about that phenomenon, the UAP, UFO phenomenon, what the latest is. Is there any movement? Is it just going to get buried like it has been over the last 80 years? Well, look, what we've been talking about on this show is, look, we're going to go through the current topics. What are some of the stories that people are talking about that they're not covering on the mainstream? We don't pretend to be experts. We're trying to figure out the same way that we want the public to figure out, like to start getting information like, wait, what said what? Who said who? And last night, I get tagged in a TweetX, and it says, David Grusch, UFO Whistleblower, a new exclusive interview. And I'm like, okay, I had the same reaction that Roxy Stryer had when I sent it to her. She said, is this real? Like, who is this? This guy, Jesse Michels, he's got like 140,000 subscribers, and I don't know who he is. But he's got David Grusch for 2 hours? He sure does. This is an exclusive 2-hour documentary type style. This guy knows people, because this guy was at the hearing, and he's very smart. He knows he knows his stuff, and he sat down with Grusch, and they talked about a lot of things. Now we'll talk about that documentary because Reilly watched it as well. Some of the things that was theorized inside of it, and did we learn anything new? Did it give any information that we didn't know before? We'll talk about all that and more. So if you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, it's your first time here, hit that button. We're almost at 100,000. We're at around close to 92,000. So we're getting closer, but we need you guys to help. So hit that button. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, anywhere podcasts are found. So without any further ado, let's get to the big thing. Me and Reilly, let's do it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is the big thing. UAP Tuesday. Me, Mark Yodius Reillyus.
Happy to be here as always.
Nice to have you here. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's
a good one to talk about.
This is a good one to talk about because, you know, that's the thing is that even last week we got into a few topics that I thought were pretty interesting. We broke down, I think last week the O'Hare one? No, last week was the government website one. Yeah, but there's always going to be something to talk about because there's been 80 years of cover-up, right? If you believe it, which Reilly and I do believe in the fact that there's been a major cover-up of, again, what actually the information is, what it is out there in the sky, all of this and more. But David Grusch has really been, like, when it comes down to this, like, even like now, when you bring up names of UFO, the stars of the UFO conspiracy or whatever it might be, or just the phenomenon in general, all the different names that have popped up in the past, David Grusch is now going to be etched in history with this stuff. And
he's the Taylor Swift now.
Right now
he is. Of the UFO. He's stormed the scene. He's selling out SoFi Stadium.
Yeah. Well, but
I think so because he is very much on on the front line now, because I mean, it brought me in the hearings.
Yeah.
Now this, it's incredible to see, and he is like, I bring up Taylor Swift because I think he's saying what I think a lot of us not want people to say, but he's especially with this documentary, he was just so open.
He's open, but he's also, what I like about him.
But he won't tell you everything too. He'll go, "Hey, I can't go there."
He also doesn't
Which
know
is fair.
everything.
Right.
He doesn't
He's not
pretend that
telling
he
you.
doesn't pretend that he does.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at something like Bob Lazar and David Grusch, and they mentioned Bob Lazar a little bit, very, very different circumstances here. As where David Grusch was an intelligence officer who was put on this program, did some investigating, came across a bunch of different witnesses that were in his office, talked to him about certain things, and he found legitimacy in a lot of it, and then obviously got to a place where he said this stuff should be revealed. And he even says inside of this documentary a handful of times, he says, you know, it's just you can't release everything whether it's reverse engineering and that, because if
that was a big point.
Yeah,
I
because if
wanna
like if it is that and it's being weaponized, you don't want to give other places, other countries information that they could either get to or all these things. But the arrogance that we've talked about many times of that this group that has been holding these secrets for 70, 80 plus years, that they know better. It's the way that's been done. Peons like you and I and you watching at home, you don't get to know any of the stuff, whether you believe in it or not, or whether you believe whatever the information might be. What is it? Even if it's anything, it's just too coincidental, and that the same thing keeps happening with details and reports around nuclear facilities, about all these different things,
and all the eyewitnesses of these in this. I call it a documentary that this YouTube channel did. It's absolutely impressive. I loved every minute of it. But hearing them say these, like the stories that Grusch is telling, but you know, from all some of the, you know, O'Hara incident, but don't tell anybody what you just saw.
Right. It never happened.
Never happened.
Right.
And so people are like, you know, these air traffic controllers, these nuclear scientists working at, I mean, and it's all nuclear. They're all like all over the nuclear facilities. And I love the questions asked therein in the documentary. Is this like they're trying to warn humanity?
Right.
Are they watching us?
The zookeepers.
The zookeepers I loved.
Yeah.
Because one of the reports is like, it knew we were there. It was almost like a breathing, like, you know, the saucer that it was.
From Fravor.
Yeah, Fravor.
Yeah.
And so the idea that you're being clocked by this thing, and they're just like, and then the zoologist comment, it's just like, yeah, my friend who believes he's been abducted many, many times, believes he is being watched, is being controlled, not controlled. Sorry, I shouldn't say it that way. Is being studied.
Right.
Because he's had so many times, and funny enough, the time I saw my UAP UFO was with him. So he has a fascinating way of describing it. I don't know if I believe all of it,
right?
But it's fascinating.
Well, a lot of this stuff was fascinating. What I did find fascinating, though, too, is that, and I couldn't tell if it definitely didn't discredit Grusch at all for me, but I wondered, as I was watching some of the ways that he was talking about things, that where I could see people who were watching who maybe had an idea of, oh, this guy knows everything, right? There is more stuff this guy Jesse Michels knew more than Grusch. Like, how many times did you hear him bring, oh, well, that's the guy that was associated with this in that program, and Grusch was
incredibly knowledgeable.
He really was. And Grusch goes, oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, it's like
some of the old, like, 1940s cases. And
this is completely a me thing. There was a couple of times when that happened, and I'm like, wait, isn't this guy supposed to know everything that's happening? I was like, who said that? Who said that he has to know everything? He knows this particular program.
Well, that's some of the skeptics out there, I believe, and anybody that's willing to discredit this. Even my lovely wife, who just don't want to watch this stuff, just goes, he doesn't know everything, and she doesn't even know.
Right.
You know, it's just a comment.
Right.
And I think you're going to be met with that when you say, and because his position, he's been told things.
Right.
So it's not first account kind of stuff. You know what I mean? He's not sitting there watching it and going, hey, I believe this. I saw this. He's like, no, I was granted access to all this classified information, and I did my due diligence. I talked to people, and then and they get into it, stuff that he's talked about in the hearings, the biological remains found in the crafts,
right.
Reverse engineering, which was what I believe to be
That's
it
what a lot of
always
people
is.
Well, I mean, that makes the most sense that the people have been trying it. And I think even Burchett, when Jesse Michels, I think, they asked him at the hearing, he said, do you think that they have gotten any headway? He's like, no, we'd control those guys if we did. Now, I don't know how true that is. The one thing I will tell you, and this is my nerdiness, the one section of the documentary that I didn't love was the time travel part of it. Because they go into this time travel thing and they talk about how the reason, they theorize that maybe because one of the reasons that these things are interdimensional, that are traveling from the future, which is possible. Again, it's just a theory. They don't say this is fact. But he said because one of the reasons they don't want to interfere at all is because they could hit the different timeline and then they could screw everything up. And I was like, in my mind,
that's a leap.
But that's not, to me, if you listen to most physicists and you listen to most people who believe, and not that anybody knows the answers, but if you listen to most time travel theories, that's not the way time travel would work. That's not the way time would work, is that there's so many different infinite timelines. Again, theory, none of this is proven, but the majority of theory is that it's like, it's silly to bring it up, but like, whether it's like Avengers or
Back to the Future
or the other one, Everything Everywhere All at Once. You don't mess, if you would, hypothetically, if you believe in the theory the way that I do, if I went back in time, in a timeline where you and I met and I told myself, don't talk to that guy, don't meet that guy, and go away. And my version of myself does, never talks to you ever. That would not affect what we're doing here today. It would in that timeline. In that timeline, those two, that's
so separate.
But that's what the
multiverse.
That's what the multiverse theory is, and that's what a lot of people believe in the multiverse is that particular timeline would just now.
If I went right instead of going left.
Yeah. Now that's so when he's talking about like that, it would. That's why Back to the Future, one of the best movies of all time, worst time travel theories ever, and they even say that in Endgame. But it is. It's one of those things where I just was watching that, and they lost me on that part of it just because I'm such a snob when it comes to those types of things.
It lost me too, because I was like, one earth-altering news event at a time, please.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's maybe it's something connected. I like in this interview when Grusch is talking about,
And that wasn't Grusch, by the way. That was just this guy Jesse kind of theorizing.
Right. And you could kind of see Grusch's eyes glazing over a bit too with it. But no, the idea he brought up, this is two of the biggest questions we have: are we alone in this universe, and what happens after death?
Right.
And he kind of alludes to knowing one of those answers now.
Yeah, and he said,
which is crazy.
And that's what he said though. He said, Grusch, it was like, the fact that we have one of those answers, and yet we're not giving the public that answer of whether or not we're alone, and we could. And when you look at all the different theories, and you look at all the different, my thing that's because they touch on this in the documentary, and we're going to get it in the comments because we get it every week when we talk about it. I'm just so fascinated by how, because of all the, I guess, the distrust and the things that the government has done and the things that media has turned around, why there's so much distrust where people can just look at all of these military the portrayals of what happened and the testimony of what's happened through air traffic controllers, military pilots. These are, again, people who, a lot of them who have not benefited. Yes. And look, Grusch, by the way, to be fair, Grusch is now part of certain organizations and things to try to make money off of this thing too. So you should absolutely, you can take that into consideration. You're like, well, you can't say he's not making money of it. Fair. He's making a career out of it now. Fair. But and you can judge it, but there's a lot of different people who have been involved in these things that when you look at all the different reports, and going to the same point we made in the past, if you paid attention to all these cases, and you keep seeing the same cases pop up that in every documentary, whether it's the one with the nuclear facility in the 60s that shut down, and they said it's not normal for one of them to normally shut down, much less 10. And when you look at that one, if you have that information as a skeptic, and you pay attention to all those things, and you combat it with the facts, if you paid attention to that Zimbabwe case, and you come back and you say, well, I actually think this, and you have you paid attention to all the details, and then you have something to say, then I listen to you more. But like, there's a lot of people like when they don't, I don't listen to it, I don't believe in it. I don't listen to it, I believe it. It's like you gotta pay attention to the facts first before you just shoo it off to the side.
Well, yeah, what would you call it? I would think that's like 80% of the populace.
Easily. Well,
probably even more, maybe. I don't know.
I used to think so, but there was a report, I don't know if it was News Nation or The Hill, whatever it was, they said that it's 50 or 49% believe in UFOs and aliens now.
But how many of those are going to go, like...
It was the entire...
How am I trying to describe this? They're saying like, yeah, I believe. I want to believe. I believe it. It's like deep down. And then, okay, here's the proof. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. How many are deep diving? Into it.
Again, it's skepticism, and we've created a culture. It's even touched on in the documentary, like, what came first, the UFO or the depiction of UFO, like, calling it this. Who knows? It's been in pop culture for so long, and I put it up there with the. Yeah. I always say that fairies and wizards and UFOs are all in the same genre in our America. Throw it into social media after.
Yeah.
That's a blender of just nonsense sometimes, because it could be said this way, and then somebody says it this way, and it's telephone, and it goes all the way down to, you see Grusch saw the Loch Ness Monster on the moon, and you're like,
no, and it is true.
I don't believe that.
It's true. It's hard. Because it's going to be, as we've said, there is nothing. It doesn't matter how much this documentary could potentially. I will say this. I don't think that this documentary really had too much new information as the way he sold it.
No,
it's interesting.
There was a point I'll bring up, but finish, please.
It's very interesting. I think that what it does very well is put together cases of things that we've talked about on this show, that a lot of people talk about in general, that if you're really getting into all of this stuff and you're really paying attention to it for the first time, it breaks down certain things of certain projects in like Project Blue Book and other things, of the way that there was cover-up stuff, the one general that was involved, like how involved Oppenheimer could have been, and all these different things. Like, all that stuff is fascinating, and I thought it was really great. But the stuff within Grusch, where it's titled as Grusch Tells Me Everything, I mean, he doesn't tell him anything different that we haven't heard before, really.
No,
right?
But, he
really couldn't.
It's a YouTube title.
I understand, but it's also not just a YouTube title. It's the second sit down that he's had with anybody. Yeah. So it is a very, very relevant thing. It's not. It is a. If you're first time, you're like, okay, I started listening to it because YouTube buttholes started talking about it, and then I started paying attention to it. I don't know how much I believe, but I paid attention to the Grusch stuff. I watched the hearings. It's a fascinating thing to watch, because, as you said, as you're walking in here, it's a well put together documentary.
Mm-hmm. It was really good. There's a point there that I really like, that I think could really help with the public perception. And it's not something that it's like not known to, I think, all skeptics and people in the government. I'm sure the president of the United States could know something, or this person or this person. Mm-hmm. But he said, if you knew the like, that person knows, they're big.
Right.
Like, that's whoa.
Right.
That person, Grusch alludes to that in this documentary, that the people that do know certain things, and probably even more than him, were shocking to him. So it won't happen. But if we get those people to go out there, again, we always say it, the ID4 shared event, that everybody can see. I believe, again, I will say it every time, I believe it, with technology the way it is, something in the next 10 years I feel like could change. Yeah, I really do.
I just figure that, they've been able to hold it for so long, and it's this program that they've been doing for. When you look at the stuff that happened in the 40s, that's to me the most telling stuff. It's like, they reported the stuff that it came out, it happened, and then there was some kind of meeting, especially the same type of secrecy, the same team that was responsible for this. People forget how secretive the Manhattan Project was.
Yeah, because he even said that it's part of that Manhattan Project also had the access to the UAPs, because it's that secretive. Well, and any kind of nuclear thing that can either be manufactured by us, Oppenheimer, or anything that's classified as nuclear will then become classified itself.
And if there's a car you're in, and you get out of that car, and it stinks like a fart, and the last guy out probably did it, and that was Condon.
That was who?
Condon. The guy probably could have used the elevator, but car worked.
Yeah.
But Condon was the guy in. He was basically the general or whatever the hell he was, where it was like, okay, look, you need to tell everybody No such thing as UFOs were going to stop. And they said it was the death blow to the UFO research for years. And he was...
It stopped. It was like, at first it was open. It was like, we're going to do this. And then it was...
And they covered it. I think... I don't know if they covered it in
something they want to freaking make it.
I don't know if they covered it in the phenomenon, or I don't know if it was covered in the UFOs investigating the unknown, but they talked about that guy for quite a while. I think it was the 5-parter. And they talked about that guy, and they were like, because it was Heinrich, who then was like, no. This is legit, and we got to pay attention. That's the other thing that they said in the documentary I didn't agree with, where they said that Blue Book, at first, is it partially true. Blue Book was the cover-up program. Basically, it was created for them to say, okay, let's just have the public go, no, everything. But because Heinrich at first, when he was working on it, was like, this stuff isn't real. And he said a couple things that he regretted saying about that it wasn't real, and then he started taking it really serious. So he's not wrong that the project was
like Grusch. With what he was talking about, I'll see what's out there. It's probably space metal and this and that, and then he was like, "What?"
Right. Well, did you imagine that the internet had a lot to do with Grusch blowing up the way that he did? Because if Heinrich would have been around, he was on Larry King.
Yeah,
Larry King used to have these people on all the time, but because you didn't get these viral clips, you couldn't get these things.
Social media, man, it's changed so much.
It has.
It's everything.
Well, I mean, the News Nation interview wasn't even on TV; it was on YouTube.
Yeah,
and it's like, so that if I just wonder how much it would have been changed and how much more people would have been aware of years before with guys like that. If I mean, it is fascinating when you look at this. It's the same type of stories. It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's the same type of, like, someone saw something, like you said, someone comes in, they visit, they go, you didn't see nothing. It's like, oh, okay. But then a few of them do speak out. A few of them do, and this is what we're getting. But I don't know, maybe the skeptic in me, and I've been talking about this on the show the last couple of weeks, I think I saw an article today discrediting Grusch and talking about how the one that I said that he's profiting now and that it's going nowhere now, and we're just going to go back to where it was. I start to believe that. I start to believe that it's almost like one of those things where it was fun for everybody to cover for a little bit. It's fun for people to say, oh, maybe we do. Oh, here comes that crazy UFO thing again.
Yeah, just a news cycle.
And it's just the vicious circle, and the same thing keeps happening over and over again. And if somebody does get a video of it, it's like the Men in Black come, they take it away. But I'm telling you, dude, if I ever see one, it's going right up on this YouTube channel, like, immediately.
I know, if I get something too, yeah.
And then the YouTube channel goes away.
Yeah, right. Then the Men in Black.
Yeah, for sure.
Just be two guys in suits sitting here doing movie reviews.
That's it. But I'll tell you what I do. I sleep well when I'm thinking about this stuff. You know why, Reilly?
Why?
Helix Sleep. They sent me a mattress. I needed a new mattress, and I got it, and it's amazing. I'll tell you a little bit about them. Here you go. It's time for a new mattress. This video is sponsored by Helix Sleep. I got a new mattress from Helix, and I love it. When I had heard that Helix was coming on board, they were interested in it, I was like, well, my wife and I, we really do need a new mattress for our room. And we've had our old one for about 6 years or so, and it's like, yeah, let me check it out. It's really great. Premium mattresses customized to fit your needs, conveniently shipped right to your door. Helix's sleep quiz, it matches you to the perfect mattress based on your body type and your sleep preferences. I need a nice, relaxing bed, and nice and comfy, and something good for my back. I sleep on my side, so I had all that stuff, and it let me know exactly what was right. The Helix sleep mattresses are fiberglass free. They deliver the mattress right to your door, free shipping in the US, and it comes rolled up in a box, and it's really easy to set up. One of the things that I loved is that there is a 100-night sleep trial to test the mattress out and ensure that you love it. Helix mattresses include a 10-year warranty, and they offer financing options and flexible payment plans. We got the Helix Sunset Luxe. And already when I got it, I was like, oh man, put it on the bed, on the frame, and we laid down on it, and I was just like, oh, it's so soft and it's so comfortable. And the hilarious thing is we let it air out, and we had my in-laws over, and I was outside, and I walk in, and my mother-in-law is just laying on the bed. This is so comfortable. It's amazing. And my kids want to, like, lay on. It's super. You just kind of sink into it, and it's just so comfortable. Visit helixsleep.com/bigthing and get 20% off your Helix mattress plus 2 free pillows. So go ahead and check it out. Thank you again to Helix for being involved in the show. Very excited to have them for a sponsor. If you're looking for a new mattress and you've been looking for a new mattress, please consider them. I'm loving it. The picture you saw was from my place. That's my mattress. It's before we put the sheets on. That's after we put the sheets on. That's everything. I love it, and I'm very excited that they're on board. So please consider them, and not only will you be super satisfied, you'll also be helping out the show. So use the link in the description. Please go and check it out right now. All right, thanks to our friends over at Helix Sleep. Man, I love Helix Sleep. I really do. This mattress, my kids, they're trying to con me out of this mattress, Reilly. They're trying to get me to no, you don't need a mattress. You and Mama don't need the mattress. Are you kidding me? My mother-in-law, when we first got it, as I said before, this is so comfortable. Why am I sleeping on my bed? But it's the best. They're awesome. If you need a new mattress, you should really check them out. We had a mattress that was like 6 years old. You know, normally it's about 7-8 years, but we're like, let's do it. And this thing, it's like, oh, it's so comfortable. Anyway, back to this documentary. The thing that was also fascinating that we've heard before, and that and again, I want to give this guy credit too, because he doesn't just blindly say, this is factual and this happened here and this report came up. He's like,
he's got receipts.
Some receipts, but and receipts that he doesn't have, he makes it pretty clear that he's not sure. And the Kennedy stuff, right? So for people there was a report that supposedly on November 12th, 10 days before President Kennedy was assassinated, he had written this letter talking about how we should be more open about the UFO UAP stuff, and that they were curious about how it was going to, the stuff they wanted to share with the Russians and other things that they were going to do. And then, 10 days later, he was assassinated, and they said like that what the guy said in the documentary was this document that was released to show this supposed letter that Kennedy wrote was some kind of declassified document that came out in, I think it was it 2006 or something? Something along those lines, whatever it was. But he said, I tried to contact this guy that requested this thing to come out. The guy hasn't gotten back to me, so I can't prove the validity of it. Yeah. So that one I take with a grain of salt. And
take it a huge grain of salt.
Yeah, I don't know how much, like, Kennedy was involved in a lot of other things that he wanted to, with the Vietnam War and other things that were going on, Cuba, that the CIA, potentially. I will say that, and I don't think I'm on too much of a tinfoil hat with this one. I don't think that it was just Oswald, personally, but but I think Oswald was involved more than he was letting on to be. I don't think he was just a patsy, as he said. But I just think from, again, physics. So it goes like this. It doesn't come from back there.
I don't know.
But my point is, I don't know how much that has to do with UFOs.
Yeah, it's two different conspiracies for me. I believe he probably knew. I mean, there's a lot of president, even in the documentary, pulling together a lot of the clips of
the Hillary Clinton thing with the book was interesting.
Yeah, that was funny. You know, so she has Rockefeller, right? It was Rockefeller over, and she's got the "Are we alone in the universe" thing, and because he did ask about the Rockefellers, what am I trying to say? Rich people, who will fund these things.
High society.
I mean, think of Contact when the first one blows up, and then rich dude in space was like, "Don't worry, I built another one." Right. It's their own interest is it could be Elon Musk, who's like, I want to buy Twitter because blah blah blah.
Well, which was interesting about they show him too, right? And he's been pretty. And this is a good point where they say, because we've talked. It was fascinating that we talked about this 2 weeks ago, the simulation theory, right?
Yeah.
And so he's all in on the simulation theory, like Elon Musk. He's like he believes that it's all simulation, but he's pretty adamant now that he doesn't believe in UFOs. He doesn't believe in aliens and those things. So, and they even said that because Grusch was like, "Come on, this is one guy that needs to ask more questions and do some stuff too, because he could probably get some stuff done." So, whether there's an ulterior motive behind that and why, I don't know. I really don't. But it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. it's for me. It always just comes to what I can see with my own two eyes,
right?
What I have seen with my own two eyes, and then what the government has released thus far, and then the people that are coming out on record that are legit people in my eyes. This all begs questioning.
Yeah,
begs to ask, what is that? I don't know if it's aliens. I don't know if they're little and green. I don't know if they're a gremlin. I don't know what they are, but.
Yeah, well, that's part of the theories that were coming at in this documentary, right? Like, look, again, the fact that we got Grusch for like almost 2 hours was interesting. Mm-hmm. But this documentary, to be clear, is a lot of theories more than anything else. Like the News Nation interview was like the breaking news information that came out, and it was a straight up information piece. There's only so much that Grusch, they even say it in the documentary. There's only so much he can say if he doesn't want to get thrown in the clink.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah, and that's what he said. He even said that in the declassification process for him itself, he was talking about when he talks about the biologics found in the craft. They're like, I can't believe you could even say that.
Right.
And he's like, well, I suppose I could say more. They said it was okay. So I know he's going through the processes, and I know that, that's why he says, well, I can't talk about that.
And it's also funny because for people who are not following this in the way that we are, if I'm watching that hearing as a casual viewer, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess they figured all this stuff in the skiff, so why haven't we heard more? Well, the skiffs were denied.
Yeah, they were denied.
They were denied the skiffs, and that's what I also like about Grusch.
Keeps going up.
What I like about Grusch is that when they ask him questions like, well, how come you didn't have the skiff? He could be like you and I, yeah, because they're covering stuff up, and he goes, I don't know, I'm not sure, and he's trying to keep it.
Civil.
His demeanor is fantastic. It really, really is. And there is stuff, like I said, that where he seems as much of a fan of this stuff as anything else too, though. Like he's like, oh, that's interesting, and he's very smart. Like when you hear him and the two of them talking about certain things, these programs, there were a couple times, I'm not gonna lie, like I've always told you, I wish I was smarter than I was when it came to quantum physics, because I want to know everything about quantum physics because it fascinates me. But sometimes I have to shut everybody up and say, don't say a word, because if I miss one word, I'm going to be lost. And there was this one section where they're like, blah, 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 and this and this. And I'm like, wait, what? And I'm like, I don't know. Subtitles or not, I don't know if I'm going to get this. But it is fascinating to watch the two of them speak and how much quantum physics is related to all this. Because I think
it's a part. I think it's absolutely a major part of it. I think that's why we don't have conclusive proof yet, that we're not there yet,
right?
Technological wise, understanding wise, because you have your great minds during the Manhattan Project, like Einstein and Oppenheimer and all these different people trying to figure out the atomic bomb, and they figured it out,
right? And
it was secretive, and it was this, and it was back in the 40s.
Yeah.
So what now when we have great minds that are delving even further, not only into quantum physics, but time travel, multiverses, whatever.
Right.
Whatever it may be, science will unlock this. Yeah. I personally believe that. So when I see evidence like the Tic Tac video,
right,
which Grusch even said back in the 40s, it was the butane tank.
Right.
A flying butane.
Right. People have been seeing this thing for years.
Seeing this thing for years. Again, that's why is that? Why are most of these experiences all shared in some way?
Similar. I mean,
so similar.
Very much so.
But it is something that I believe it's just, there's a big part of me that believes that there is, let's call them the men in black,
sure,
the higher ups, that do not want anybody to know, because they have the ultimate secret.
Yeah, because
whatever
it's been done for 80 years.
Yeah. I always liken it to the space race, Sputnik, going to the moon. Nobody's going to want to share that stuff. We want to get there first. United States, Russia, China, whoever has potential UAP stuff, if they find it, the government gets it, you bet your ass they're going to try to reverse engineer it and figure it out. So I believe it's everybody has their little black book, skiff, whatever. They're trying to do the same thing, get to the moon first. Fly one of these things, whatever it may be, it's a secret. And I think they know and can rely on people out there that will have potentially permanent blinders on, that just can't, for whatever reason, they don't want to go there, because there is so many classifications of this crazy world we live in, right? And the human experience is different for everyone. And some person, like my mother, who will, know I'm having a hard time, say, "Oh, I was praying for you."
Right.
I was talking to the angel, that kind of stuff. And I love you, Mom. Thank you for that. But what would it mean for her if it was like, because I brought it up, UFOs. Now they don't exist. She just
right, but she believes in angels in the sky, which is again nothing against people who do believe in that.
The human condition, and that's why I say human condition. It is what we are all going through. I will never fault anybody for believing what they believe. That is a God-given right.
Exactly.
And so, but I do believe that it can be so inherent to someone's person,
right,
that my mother, angels are there looking out for us. And if the Tic Tac flies right next to it, what is that? Right. What is like that? What that means to be told that we're not alone in this universe.
Sure.
When that person could be like, we're not alone in this universe except for he who lives above us in a golden chariot.
Well, and again, we don't know, and in no world, or myself or Reilly, poo-pooing anybody who believes in anything, like whatever.
No, because I believe in God, and I have religion in my life, and
like whatever that might, and whatever it is. But it's also the idea that there are tons of people who will say, "Yo, yeah, there's that." Well, there are gods out there, or at one point, people believed that Zeus was out there. People believe that all these different things. But
thank you. That's kind of look at the different time frames of our existence.
Sure. I mean, look, there's
to explain things in the sky, to explain earthquakes, to explain
all
this.
That stuff. But different religions have believed in different entities throughout time. But it's funny that like people who are like there are a lot of hardcore religious people who believe in these different entities, and then they go, "Yeah, that thing flying around the sky, that doesn't exist." And it's like, well, you got to be open-minded on it too. If you're going to be open-minded on the other thing, that's my opinion. But what I thought was fascinating, what Grusch also said, was that with the idea that you're going into the reverse engineering and all the things that we figured out, if we tapped into nuclear energy that quick into where that was, we split the atom, right? That the idea that you'd be able to actually eventually bend space-time and all that stuff, and maybe that's essentially what they're working on, like you said before, where you don't want to get it. If that's what we're working on, if that's like this. People always ask this too. This is a question I get anytime I bring this up now. I was at breakfast with a friend a couple weeks ago, and she said, "Well, wait, how come no other countries are talking about this?" They all are. And the thing is, when they're not covering what there are countries that are not being covered on our news because they're too busy covering Trump and Hunter Biden and other things. They're not covering stuff like that. They talked about in this documentary. The Indian government is very transparent, and they're not hiding any secrets and things. And then they have this whole documentary on the thing that happened in Japan, and there's tons of things that are happening. There are many sightings. Like, people who are watching this eventually or originally were like, "Oh, that's pretty convenient that the U.S. is the only place." Well,
I never got that.
Hotspot.
I never got that. It was just like there are so many sightings out there. All
Africa,
you have to do
everywhere.
is one Google search, and you will see just how widely
it's insane.
The phenomenon is so widely seen everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah, it scares me to think that human beings in general are trying to bend time and space. It really is if to try to be able to travel.
Yeah, that's why I loved Oppenheimer, the movie. I mean, the question of, do we need to do this? Do we need to unleash this into the world?
That kind of power, especially when it's not we. It's just a group of us that's like that big, that's not telling the rest of us and not giving the rest of us a say. That's the stuff that is
It would be the same thing if an alien came to me in Michigan that time I saw it, and it landed and it said, "Hey, here you go. We got bend space-time, travel the galaxy in the speed of light, time travel right here, and here's who killed JFK."
Right.
And the alien gives me all of that.
Of which one you can find out, you mean?
Well, they unleash the secrets to me, right? And we're able to do this, and I now am the Oppenheimer of the alien world or whatever it may be. Mark Reilly figured it all out.
Sure, right.
You know, I don't know how, but he was, this, and this.
They found me. I don't know how
they found me, and I write it all down and I give it to him. And Matt Damon walks out as one of the government guys, and he goes, "Thanks, Reilly." And they drive off. We don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Oppenheimer.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's what happened to anybody like this. This is what the government wants to do. They would probably want to get all these secrets and just take it and be like, and that's that small.
But the misconception on there too, even hearing you say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You lump in it as the government.
Oh yeah.
But it's not wrong to say. A lot of people say this, but it's not even the government. It's like they said that there's this one
powerful people that
they said this is one report in the beginning of this documentary where they talked about, and I forget who requested it, but it was like in the late or the 40s. And they said that the one thing that has to happen because it'll just be too expensive for UFO program is that it needs to be a side project. It needs to be something that is funded outside of the government itself, and
like NASA.
But that was in the 40s. We'll get to NASA in a second.
Yeah.
But the 40s. But it was the 40s, and it's not NASA. It's this group that's running outside that they alluded to in the hearings. It's this group that they keep talking about that AOC is like, where's this funding? How's this funding coming from? And where's that going to? It's just crazy that in 1940s it was suggested that that's what needs to happen. And here we are in 2023, and that's exactly the reports that we still like. This thing does exist, and this is what's happening. But you talk about NASA, and what was the show with Al Pacino and about the Nazi hunters when they're running around on Amazon?
Yeah.
It's based off a comic book. Hunted, is that what it's called? Hunted? Hunters?
Hunters.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's funny because when I was watching that show, I watched season 1. I know season 2, Logan Lerman. I didn't see season 2. But there was like a whole, the idea that there were these Nazis that were working inside of the U.S. government. And I had said, I wonder how much of that is true. And then when you see this, dude.
All the different government German scientists, Nazi scientists that they plant
like straight up, and these weren't just like these
everywhere in the U.S. government to learn from.
They were working. Yeah. They shipped over a lot of these scientists that were working for the Germans in the Nazi regime, studying UFOs, were moved over to NASA and running NASA and running the space program for the United States.
Hail Hydra!
But dude. But like, and it's like, and Grusch is like, I don't think that would happen today. I'm like, you're probably right because of the idea of the fact that you have so much more of the, again.
We could turn this into a whole other podcast right now.
I'm
if
sure,
we
but
went the other way. But
isn't that it's the idea? But showing that's again, it's not like yes they did this, they did all these war crimes, but they could figure out a lot of stuff about space that we don't know, and it's like it's. That part of it was weird.
Yeah, that was a fascinating part where I understand somewhat, but it's just a weird.
I understand the conversation of having them involved. I don't understand having them run it.
Yeah,
like to give a power piece like.
Well,
that,
I don't know.
It's a different time. I get it. Like, it'd be more people are worried about. Or like we won the war, and now we have these people working for us. But it's like when you look at some of this stuff that some of these guys were doing. Like one of the guys was running one of the camps.
It's kind of like a Mandalorian season 3. You're getting some of the ex-Empire peeps, being folded into the New Republic to rehabilitate. Yeah. That's the idea. It's not I don't know if it's a good one.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
It's again, that's back in the day. That's the 40s. That's the
very
early 50s.
Very different time, but nonetheless, what the fascinating part besides just what we just talked about was the idea that a lot of these scientists were the ones that were in the UFO programs for the Nazis, and they were the ones that were studying all the stuff there. And again, talking about how other countries did it. But look, it's fascinating.
We just need transparency.
Yeah, the documentary.
It always comes down to it.
The documentary is pretty fascinating, and we are going to cover a couple of the stories here in a second. But before we do that, I also want to tell you guys about 2 other great sponsors that we have that I just love, and I've talked about them many times over, and that's Nutrafol, and then followed by Green Chef. 2 amazing sponsors. I'm going to tell you about both right now. Don't be embarrassed. Don't do it. Listen, did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, guys. But it doesn't have to be your fate. you can get ahead of thinning with Nutrafol. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their hair wealth wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. It works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months taking Nutrafol men's hair growth supplements. Everybody feels this way as you're getting older. You're like, oh man, am I the only one? Why is this happening to me? This and that. We're in an age now where you can get it helped. You can get it fixed. Take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men, but you have to enter that promo code BIGTHING. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. Nutrafol.com/men and enter that code BIGTHING. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code BIGTHING. You guys know Green Chef. I've been talking about Green Chef forever. I love them. I've been so excited to continue to work with them because I've been eating really good, as I mentioned before, not only with other vitamins and stuff I'm taking, but I'm eating really well. And the reason why I'm eating so well is because Green Chef is the #1 meal kit for eating clean with dinners that work for you, and it's not the other way around. You can eat clean the easy way with recipes that help manage your weight and support your wellness goals without skimping on flavor. I talk about it all the time. I do my own. I make like quesadillas now, and I can throw stuff on the grill. They have really good meat, good burgers, and they have everything that you can actually eat. If you don't like burgers, you want to eat vegan more, they can do that too. You can enjoy effortless plant-based dining with Vegan Kickoff, which is a brand new limited time options, including delicious vegan breakfast, lunches, dinners, and sides. They have everything. They deliver everything you need to eat clean the easy way for the rest of the summer. You can feel your best with nutritionists-approved recipes packed with clean ingredients that support your healthy lifestyle, and they taste great too. So if you want to check it out, please go and do it because they're really amazing. You get ahead of the busy season with their convenient step-by-step recipes. They have dinners that are ready in like 25 minutes or less. I'm telling you, it was so easy for me, and I'm an imbecile when it comes to cooking. And it was so great. I mean, I love them. If you go to greenchef.com/60thing, greenchef.com/60thing, and use that code 60thing, you'll get 60% off plus free shipping. It is worth the shot. Go and give it a whirl, as the world girls would say. All right, thank you to our friends over at Green Chef and Nutrafol. And as I've mentioned many times over on this show, and if you watch any of the other shows that I do on this channel, the ability to do these shows is a blessing. To be able to do it every week and to be able to do a channel like this and have you guys watch and all that too. And people, like, look, yeah, ads will pop up and you'll see things up and you'll go, either you click ads or you watch one of those things or that. The sponsors are so important for us because we align ourselves with people that we think are going to be good for the audience and that you guys will like. And if you like them, then you will get them and that will support the show and that keeps us going. So whenever you ask, like, hey, how do I support the show? If you have the means to do it, please consider one of our wonderful sponsors. I put the link in the description and I also pin the links as the first comment below. Right, this is a fascinating story here. This is one that came out just yesterday, or 2 days ago, rather, I'd say. There's a secret memo about shooting down a UFO, and that was sent to Justin Trudeau in February, and that has become public.
Yes.
Trudeau's administration has now disclosed that while many of these UAPs appeared benign, object #23's purpose, mode of propulsion, or connection to any nation state remains unverified. This is from First Post, and this is Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau received a surprising memorandum concerning an unidentified flying object incident in Canada's Yukon Territory. This memo came to his attention in February, shortly before the search for the mysterious identified aerial phenomenon, UAP or UFO, was suspended. The classified document revealed that the Yukon object marked the 23rd UAP sighting over North America in the early weeks of 2023. It followed a disruptive event involving a Chinese espionage balloon that entered U.S. airspace on February 4th. Subsequently, U.S. authorities reported 3 more incidents of objects being turned down from the sky. Besides the object in Yukon, puzzling aerial entities were also intercepted over Alaska and Montana between February 10th and February 13th. Trudeau administration has now disclosed that while many of these UAPs appeared benign, we said that already, and then there's a woman who's making a guy smell her armpit. This heavily censored document dated February 15th was acquired by CTV News through a Freedom of Information request. It uncovered the perplexity among Trudeau's top officials regarding the object. Just 2 days later, attempts to recover the craft in the rugged terrain were abandoned, leaving Canadian authorities uncertain about its nature. The document provides insights into Trudeau's response to the series of UFO sightings that captivated the Western world earlier in the year, preceding several hearings in the U.S. Congress on the possible existence of extraterrestrial craft. This seems like the same old story, right?
I was just going to say, this is like, we've now entered the conversation or the time in my life where I'm just like, yeah, I'm not going to be surprised by these stories.
It's just the same thing.
Because there's too many out there.
Something happens, there's a big report, one of the major leaders knows about it. Oh, and then they were told to stay away from it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's
and
so
they got
frustrating.
more stuff for their everything.
It's so frustrating. Like, it's just like,
seriously.
But it is. But
Seth Rogen was onto something. We need Paul. We just need
Paul is great.
We need an alien to come out and just go, yeah, this is what happened.
Right.
You know? I mean, I know. It's just this it's just really not that surprising anymore.
I know it's not. But it's also what's going to happen in general. Like, it just goes back to that same question. It's like, what's going to happen with all these reports coming out and the same things? And I just hope James Fox was right. I really do, because remember that he had an interview about a month ago where he's just like, now in the next year, there's going to be tons of new information that's going to come out.
That's what I feel. I mean, I was saying 10 years. You know, just with the advancement of technology or something happening.
No, but he's talking about like more whistleblowers, more people coming out, more information,
I can see that.
More footage, all those types of things. And it's like, I hope that's what happens. And then you get that other guy that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Who said that they're coming to visit in 2027. And like I said, hey man, plans change. it's like you can't. I don't. You know, when I have family members say, I'm coming to visit you in November, I go, I believe it when I see you.
Yeah. My sources say the end of the world will happen on February 14th, 2027. Yeah. Valentine's Day.
Hey,
bummer.
Rimrom, are you ready? Hey, forget it. We'll let him live for another 2 years.
You never know. This news, this Trudeau thing, you know? Yeah.
I buy it. I buy it.
There's
another thing is, and there's tons of them. What's crazy is every time I'm like, all right, we got subject. What are we going to talk about this week? Because when it comes to a place that there's not any major stories that have come out this week, which there usually always is, if there isn't, then we can break down one of the like phenomena that has happened over the year. I want to really go over that nuclear one soon, the one from the 60s. That one, that'll be one that we really cover about, I think, a little bit more depth than we even did with O'Hare. But this documentary pops up today. This thing with Trudeau pops up, and all these things pop up. There's always there's so many different stories that pop up, and you will get. And I do agree also with what they said in this documentary. There are a lot of people that are just like grabbing at it because they want to get
news cycle.
The news
clicks
cycle
of the day.
But it's also talking about how there are people who are just kind of charlatans and people who are just like selling snake oil and those types, and they're out there too. And some people will say there's certain. I mean, do they talk about Greer at all? I know they mentioned him like briefly.
I can't remember.
Like, because people don't really know what to make of Greer, right? Yeah. Like I don't know what to make of Greer. But there is, for me, when I look at, I think when I'm watching Greer talk, I feel like I'm watching like a science fiction show that I'm like, this is cool.
Yeah,
but I don't buy any of it. When I listen to Grusch, I'm like because there's a lot of stuff that they talk about inside of this whole thing, not just Grusch, but the way that they talk about the military programs and all these different things that have happened. And I'm like, this is scary stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the two different kind of UFO documentaries it's like one, the ancient alien stuff, or it's like really out there kind of fun enjoyment, kind of like this is not a documentary. This is a show where, you know, Bigfoot's an alien, you know, whatever it may be. I don't really like those. It's the stuff when it's concrete, when it's legit people that are, you know, credible people. That's when I start to take notice.
Just watching these old press conferences and things like, there was that one, I think it was in 2004, when they did that one with all these people that were involved in it. And the one guy was like, you know, they need me to testify at a hearing, I'll testify. And I don't know if that guy's since passed or whatever it was. And he had a lot of different information. And there's a lot of people out there that are legitimate career people that I don't understand why they would be lying. I just don't get it. Like, I'm not going to tell you that for people who answer, oh, profit. I'm not going to tell you that there aren't people that are like that.
Yeah.
But all of them? I don't know, man.
I know. At a certain time, maybe back in the 80s or something, you know, where we're just kind of like walking around with like, you know, Aquanet in our hair and like, you know.
That's what the Bob Lazar's element of it, right?
But, you know, our world is changing. And it's like I feel like so many people just take for granted that this is like the craziest thing to ever happen to our society.
What, the internet?
The phone. The phone. We have something in our pocket that can record everything, send an email, buy a thing of licorice. Listen to music, whatever it may be.
Licorice is the first place you go.
Yeah, you know, because I found this. I just bought some licorice online.
Okay, fair enough.
And I was like, that looks good.
Yeah, right.
And I got it on my phone.
Red.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
But that's what I'm saying. It's just we take this for granted. At one point, we didn't have this.
Right.
So
we also rely on it.
We very much rely on it, too much so. But you know, technology changes you, and changes things in the way you look at things. And so again, it's just like, look around. We are getting to a point where there is stuff that you cannot ignore. I'm sorry, you cannot ignore this stuff.
Yeah, well, that's I mean, that's ultimately what they say inside of this doc. And I would recommend the documentary again. I'm gonna give I'll be able to tell you guys exactly where it is. It's Jesse Michels. I think that I'm pronouncing it right. I'll put a link in the description note too. But it's right now, as we're taping this, has around 578,000 views. It went up around 20 hours ago. It'll be close to 48 hours when this episode goes up. But it is really fascinating. I think that it's worth the watch if you want to check it out, just to see. And I think this last thing I want to talk about here, and this is this thing on the Fair Observer, and it says UFO disclosure, is it the most significant law in human history? After hearing sworn testimony on evidence of alien intelligence, Congress is now drafting a law that will require agencies to disclose information to the public. That Congress is taking the matter seriously in the first place implies the testimony and further evidence provided behind closed doors has a substantial basis in fact. And this is also pretty interesting to have this is from 1941 when they had the Roswell one. And the first thing, this is what I was talking about. Like, before they did the weather balloon stuff, they said it captures a flying saucer on a ranch in the Roswell region. And then a couple days later, they said, no, just kidding, it was a balloon.
Yeah.
On the face of it, the proposed National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2024. All right, one of the things that they say here, interesting little quirks pepper the legislation. Ongoing claims relating to waste from the Manhattan Project can be found in Section 1099 AA. No doubt essential reading for anyone who's just come back from seeing Oppenheimer. Section 581 extends deadlines for the review of World War I Valor medals. Who would have thought this was something we were figuring out and spending money on? And they talked about the start to resonate when they get to Division G, which is the unidentified anomalous phenomenon disclosure. When you see it, your scrolling immediately pauses with first thoughts of, wait, did I just read that correctly? The division in question is described as the Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon Disclosure Act of 2023. So what does that actually say? There are no prizes for guessing what it might be associated with. Following recent sworn testimony by David Grusch, Fravor, and Graves before Congress this summer on the subject of strange goings-on in the sky, crash craft from other worlds and biologics described as non-human in origin. Evidently, members of Congress have followed up on Grusch's multiple responses along the lines of, I can't answer that now in public, but can do so behind closed doors. Those meetings appear to have taken place, really, and those few members of Congress who are security cleared to attend those meetings have reached some astonishing conclusions. Now, what I will say about that, when this documentary came out, They remember he's been recording and holding it for a little bit. It was only like a couple of days after the hearings, I think, right? Did they mention, because I missed the last part of it, do they mention the whole thing when they try to do that smear campaign against Grusch?
Did they mention? Yeah.
Did they mention in the doc?
I can't remember.
No, and I don't think they did, because it came up. It probably happened after this documentary was recorded, and that's why this particular thing. Maybe they did get into a skiff after this. Maybe they did have some kind of conversation after this. This article to me is pretty fascinating. This
it's good news.
Fair Observer, it really is, and it's like the idea that this particular. I'm going to dive more into this, because the idea that UFO disclosure is the most significant law in human history. If they start really actually getting in there and just really dive deep into this thing, I'd actually like to cover this a little bit more next week, Reilly.
Let's get into it a little bit more, but I think it's what we can get from that is, again, if they're going to disclose all this information and make it available to the public, it's up to the public to go educate themselves rather than say, bah!
I mean, yes and no. But it's also the idea that eventually they've got to get to a place where the mainstream entertainment, it's not news, but the mainstream entertainment starts saying, okay, let's start covering this, because it's like they only,
the mainstream or politics or people or whatever it is. I guess, again, I go to the Republican debate. When that question was broached, it became a punchline.
Right. Until they realized the backlash they got on the internet.
They sure did. Yeah, they were like, oh, by the way, I do believe, and that became a politic talking point.
Of course it did, because they realized that, again, when 50% or 49% of people believe that it's legit, and it's not just, this is what I said about this show, the one we're doing right now. Why, in no means a year and a half, we've always been curious and fascinated by it, but we weren't diving into it the way that we have been the last couple of weeks, and that's because we want to represent the people out there that are asking questions. There's always new people. I mean, hell, Grusch was one of those people who was skeptical about it.
Yeah.
There's always these people who are going to be skeptical, who's not going to stand, who are eventually going to go, oh, I really read into this stuff and I want to ask more questions. That's going to keep happening. And so that's kind of who we want to represent, because I've always been, like Reilly mentioned Ancient Aliens, that show. When I turned on that show, the UFOs Investigating the Unknown, when I turned that on, that's what I thought I was getting myself into. And then I quickly realized, oh, wait a minute. This is a little bit more serious than I thought. I was always fascinated by the Tic Tac thing that we saw, and how all that came about in the New York Times article. I was fascinated by it, but I didn't keep up on it the way that I did after I watched that. What's weird is I started watching that series, and I knew nothing about those hearings. I didn't know those hearings were happening. And then after getting more into it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like energy pushing me to go check this stuff out. So I want us to be that kind of voice for people,
Yeah. We're just questioning. It's
just asking questions.
It's asking questions. It's as simple as that, because there's I keep using the analogy, smoke, there's fire. It seems to be a lot of smoke if you look at the credible people. My own experiences, of course, color this, but that Tic Tac video really, really, really changed it for me. And then now the hearings, this article that we're talking about, disclosures, slowly getting out there that this is serious.
It is.
It's serious. It's fun to talk about. It's fun in the way that, like, again, answering the question, are we alone in this universe? What? That's not something you don't, as being a little kid sitting out there in the grass and looking up in the sky going.
But I think as your wife and my wife have proven also, right? It's like I was so excited, Reilly, like yesterday, and I knew it was too good to be true.
Same. So she said, I'll watch this with you.
So I'm watching the David Grusch interview, and my wife sits down next to me and starts watching him.
Yeah.
And I'm
mine
going,
too, yeah.
without saying anything. And I'm going, whoa, is she actually getting interested in it? And she, so we're watching, she's going on, and he starts talking about like the physics and stuff. I'm like, oh, we're going to lose her? And he's going on for a little bit. She's watching. I'm like, all right, she's locked in. And she turns to me, she goes, how long are we going to watch this shit for?
Oh, God, that's exactly. Like, How long is this? I got that. I go, well, it's.
Yeah.
And I said, it's over an hour. Yeah, she's totally lied. Then it's over an hour.
And then she goes, I don't know if I believe him. I go, you don't know anything about him. And I think, but what she did is she represented the majority of people who were just kind of, look, I was talking about it with Katie Sackhoff. We were talking about it. And she's like, and she jokingly kind of pokes at me, and we had a guest on the show, her podcast that we can't disclose yet. It was a good one, and she's like, "Wow, he's really into it. He's kind of follows all that stuff." And I said, "Yeah," but because they had said the same thing. There was a guest on. I think I brought this up. There's a guest on the show that we had on Katie's show, and they start talking about the UAP stuff, and the guest said, "Well, I think that it's because of the reason." He said, it's just coincidental that when all this stuff was happening in the news, that's when they did it. And I think it was to divert attention. And he was in the middle of the interview when I was listening to it. I'm going, and I stopped him afterwards. I go, let me just say this. When it comes to that particular thing, because I'm not telling you to believe. You believe, you believe.
Yeah.
But when it comes to that one I always push back against because I think it is the silliest argument. He said, well, why? I said, because the day of you're talking about the hearings in general. He said, yeah. I said, the day of the hearings on mainstream media, that day, I'm not talking about days following because Trump is the lead story for every day. But that day was Hunter Biden was the lead story. Trump was the second story. The serial killer was the third story. Something else was, and a puppy buying, giving treats for your puppy was like 5. And some places it wasn't even covered.
Yeah.
And other places it was buried as the last story. So I said, that doesn't hold for this. I said, maybe if, you're talking about News Nation or The Hill, you want to make that? Okay, but they're covering everything over there too.
Yeah.
But and he's like, look, it's a good point. He's like, I guess that he didn't believe all of a sudden, but he said that's a good point. So think about that stuff before, because it's just the skeptic in all of us that goes, nah, I don't know. I don't trust anybody. I mean, you shouldn't trust anybody.
You should question everything. Be a skeptic in your life, but then make your decision based on the facts in front of you.
Right.
And if you can look at the Tic Tac video and listen to some of these stories and still go, no, I don't believe it.
I don't. Yeah.
God bless you.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's our show for this week. We're going to get more into that document next week. I think it's pretty fascinating. Probably going to break it down a little bit more. And who knows what's going to pop up. Maybe another interview. But nonetheless, I put the links in the description for that interview. Please go and check that out. Mark Reilly, check him out at Reilly Around. You can check him out. He's got on the Twits, on the Instagram, all that and more. And for me, we've been doing some reactions on this channel. We just, I don't know, to One Piece, man. Great show. I've been doing reactions to that. That's on the channel. We do a show here every day. For the podcast, we do short form, we do movie reviews, do that and more. If you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, and you're just checking this one out, hit that button, subscribe, do it, and let the English see you do it. All right. See you next time. Bye.